thank you so much, Professor Azizuddin, for this immensely interesting, detailed, and highly valuable and important explanation and analysis. I understand that probably the listeners and viewers in Malaysia understand details and intricacies of Malaysian politics. However, the viewers and listeners from different countries will probably find Malaysian political landscape highly complex to discern and to understand all the dynamics and forces at play in this. So I think this is extremely important that you explained it. It's in so much detail. I will just recap a few things that you mentioned for our viewers. You mentioned at the beginning that the Western theories cannot be applied outrightly to Malaysia. So this is a very interesting and important point, which you also elaborated. You also mentioned that ideology or political ideology, which applies in some other polities around the world, is increasingly less relevant in Malaysia, and that politics is built around interest and different issues concerning voters and people in general, characterized by more pragmatism, as you mentioned. So you also mentioned, which is quite interesting for me as well, as a keen student of international relations and Southeast Asia and Malaysia in particular, that the new Perikatan Nasional government has demonstrated effectiveness in dealing with the COVID-19 crisis, which is quite interesting. And also you mentioned that the economic issues that Malaysia is currently facing are very central to the support that the new government receives from the people. Interestingly, you were saying that the Malaysian society has dramatically changed. So if I may start there, can we talk about if you can just elaborate a little bit more on that? Are we safe to assume that Malaysia is indeed a new Malaysia? Because after 61 years of stable government in the past, which was UMNO-led Barisan Nasional Front, obviously including many other parties, but leading party UMNO, United Malay National Organization, there was a kind of predictability. And obviously that was quite important for the development of Malaysia. And then 2 years ago, when Malaysians enthusiastically embraced the Pakatan Harapan government of 4 parties, which are very diverse, have different ideologies and different goals, I would say, that are sometimes conflicting. Do you, can we say that this is now a new Malaysia, and what does that term encompass? What does it mean to have a new Malaysia? Because is it a new Malaysia under the Pakatan Harapan, or is this a new Malaysia, which is a new concept of coalition building? If you can elaborate a little bit further on this, I would really appreciate that.
Okay, thank you very much, Osman, for your brief, mentioning about, to cover some of my topics that I discussed just now. And also when it comes to the question that you asked me, I think that the debates about new Malaysia actually started with the debates about new politics. I think since the GE12, 2008, there's a lot of discussion about the emerging of new politics, where and the debate actually, even I also wrote one article, published in Taiwan Journal of Democracy, that discussed about what kind of new politics that emerged in Malaysia during that period, in the last decade. So what I can see is that I mentioned also in my talk just now, which I think triggered through the reformasi movement, who wants change in the system, political system, which is more democratic, more transparent, try to combat corruption, for example, graft, So, and it became a social movement through reformasi movement. And this reformasi movement also trigger. Anwar Ibrahim is just an icon to that, but actually it's triggered through the society, which is particularly the middle class and also the netizens online. So they use this mechanism to really propagating. And from time to time, this idea become acceptance, receive acceptance from the people, because if you notice, even the Malaysian society, according to our Malaysian statistical department, the number of urbanites, people who live in the urbans, also quite astonishingly high, more than 70% in Malaysia. Of course, when it comes to vote, they vote in rural area, in kampong, but they actually part of the product actually of new economic policies on. So, and these people actually trigger and want a new politics in Malaysia, and somehow supporting Pakatan Rakyat before, Pakatan Rakyat, and help the opposition to become a strong opposition against Barisan Nasional. And Barisan Nasional actually struggle, to even produce, few policy which is more, more, meaning that they try to bring openness to the society. For example, like Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, through Islam Hadari, I think if you have listened before, and also through his agenda to somehow, accommodate, more, freedom given to the people. In fact, I think, during actually DAP only as a party only got coverage on the Malaysian media is during Abdullah Ahmad Badawi's period as a prime minister. So Abdullah Ahmad Badawi realized that people already changed, and he wants to accommodate, like what happened to, for example, in China during Deng Xiaoping, after the Tiananmen Square massacre, when people, Deng Xiaoping, knows country already, people already changed, so he tried to accommodate what the people's need. So that's Abdullah Ahmad Badawi is trying to do, but there's a resistance within UMNO for that change, because they worry that they're going to lose the power if the leaders change the system. And when Najib took over from Abdullah Ahmad Badawi, Najib as well. Okay, Najib, in order to study about Najib's period as a prime minister, you need to divide into two periods. First period from 2009 until 2013, where he really, embraced, openness in the system. When he produced One Malaysia agenda, transformation plan, NKRA, so many good policy actually for the countries, And he actually the one who abolished the Internal Secret Act, ISA, emergency ordinance, and amended the several others called draconian law back then. The only thing is, the resistance is strong, against Najib, and the people seems that whatever policy brought by Najib doesn't receive well by the people back then. So that's why Pakatan Rakyat so popular, because Pakatan Rakyat somehow Anwar Ibrahim's very good, in projecting the agenda of Pakatan back then, and also Anwar also brought the idea of new politics to Malaysia, but somehow cannot defeat Barisan Nasional. They're able to win the popular vote, but cannot defeat Barisan Nasional. So that's why Najib, since 2013 until 2018, he changed approach to more Malay-centric, Malay Islamic-centric, policy which are more conservative in approach. And he also close to pass during that period, even though previously passed very close to Anwar Ibrahim. So it changed the landscape of politics. And then suddenly, there's some fighting within UMNO as well with Tun Mahathir. That's why Tun Mahathir left, formed Bersatu and collaborate with Anwar. Then, you know the story. They managed to defeat Barisan Nasional Government. So when Pakatan Harapan won the elections, in 2018, they come up with the idea that now is the era of Malay, a new Malaysia Baru. Okay, one interesting is that based on my study, nothing much actually different compared to the previous government. Probably because they're still new, they need times to really reform. They have reform agenda, but somehow they cannot reform fully because some of the reform that they try to propagate actually will take time. Some reform which they call it low-hanging fruit, meaning that easily they can reform, also fail to get through. For example, like when they want to ratify ICEST, for example, International Convention on Elimination of Racial Discrimination, and also Rome Statute, the ICC, International Criminal Court, failed to be ratified by the Malaysian government because there's a resistance from the Malay group in that movement. So all the actually reform that they're going to produce, if they're able to successfully implement, I think that we can see a new Malaysia. So far, they fail to reform. The only thing that they're able to reform when it comes to, for example, like electoral reform that they projected is undi 18, meaning the age of 18, nation can vote for election. That I think they will just wait until the law become being gazetted in the parliament. So by saying that now is a new Malaysia, for me it's not yet, because there's a resistance from the old Malaysia against the new Malaysia idea. But this I think we're going through even until the next general elections, But the resistance I think contributed because of, like I also mentioned in my talk, there's an urban and also rural divide in the society, and also suspicious between races that still exists. Malay to Chinese, Chinese to Malay, and also people in Sabah and Sarawak also demanding autonomy, whatever. So all these dynamics actually contribute to the current situation, what really happened in Malaysia. So for me, New Malaysia is not yet there, but it will take time actually. Probably not the next election, probably several other terms, probably next 2 elections in order to see the real reform able to produce in Malaysia. So probably that's my very lengthy answer to your questions.
Thank you, Professor Azizuddin, for this elaborate explanation. And if I just can ask one more question, and then we will be receiving some questions from our viewers. But before that, just one more question for you from my part. In the past, Malaysian politics was quite characterized by a rivalry between UMNO and Impasse, Part3 Islam Se Malaysia, and the central topic was the relevance of Islam in politics and society in Malaysia. Does it mean that now with new developments and the coalition between the two parties, that Islam is becoming less relevant in a political sense in this debate, or it's still continuing to be an important feature of Malaysian, or more so Malay politics?
I think Islam and also religion has always relevant in nations' politics. Because the only thing is what kind of Islam, what kind of approach of political Islam, that being presented to the Malaysian people. Because previously, yes, like what you say, we only know the rivalry between these two parties, UMNO and PAS. In fact, the idea to produce the inculcation of Islamic value that I mentioned earlier also is the idea that to Islamize UMNO, Islamize the system, bring Islamization policy into the into the bureaucracies, and at the same time to counter the same also movement ideas coming from past back then, So that's why one example I can give you, for example, like when Tun Mahathir, for example, saying that Malaysia is an Islamic state, for example, that idea actually just to counter the idea of Islamic states from past, who wants to change Malaysia and change the legal system according to their perspective. But interestingly, when now they are in power together in the government of Pakistan National, when people asking about hudud, whether is it possible to produce hudud right now, they also a bit reluctant to mention, and they say that it can take time, So almost I think similar to the Amanah also approach before, when in Pakistan government saying that it can take time, when people are ready, then are ready and also can be applied. So in that way, you can see is that yes, there's a skepticism when talk about Islam, because then you can see that there's no difference. Whoever in government, similar things happen, similar way to apply happen, and what's new? Nothing new to the issues. And but I think even I think even in Pakistan Harapan also the government now, so they also have difficulty to show that how they can appeal to the people, particularly Muslim, when they have almost similar agenda together, nothing much different. So that's why you can see that among the Malay now Muslim, they're not seeing Islam, even though Islam always relevant for me, but they not see Islam is a thing that issue by the political party that they're going to support because that politics bring certain types of some agenda, but they always thinks that they only follow leaders. So the problem in Malaysia is now not only Malays, but also other groups as well. They tend to follow more leaders, believe on the elites, rather than the agenda brought, or the policy brought by the elites. So even though that's the situation, of course, in order to win the elections, all political party, particularly the Malay-based political party, including PKR as well, even though it's multiracial party, but PKR has a significant number of Malay, party members who are also dominant in the party. So they have to, propagate on the issue of Islam, in order to appeal, to the people for the support. So that's why I think Islam will be used, in the elections, and also they will counter argument with other groups, saying that they are not Islamic, we are more Islamic. That's why what the debates now, when suddenly one party accuse other party is kafir, and other party accuse also kafir. So this is not healthy actually in Malaysia. But somehow this is a reality that happened today, when easily Islam can be used to sideline people, or even to challenge other groups, in order for them to maintain the status quo. So yeah, for me, I think Islam will continue. Difficult to see differences now between even UMNO and Impasse, almost similar group. In fact, I used to say that why not they combine together, form one party together. But of course, it's not the idea well accepted by them, because they always think about the tradition of the party, that because they have a long tradition, it's difficult for them to merge together. But back to your question, I think Islam always there and be used, and they try to because Muslim actually now even live in urban, they are very cautious in religion, in Islam. So that's why I think whoever bring the best argument, best idea about how to bring progress to Islam and to Muslims, and I think those parties will be receive support from most of the majority of the people in Malaysia.
Thank you, Professor Azizuddin, for this elaborate answer. Can we now move to, we've got a few questions and the time is running out. So if I may ask you just to briefly, if you can answer these questions. One of the questions that we have is from Dr. Sharifa Munira Alatas, who is a distinguished professor as well. She's asking about the Malaysian or Malay racial politics. I'll just summarize. Do you think that the debate is too much centered on internal racial politicking, whilst there is a significant and quite dangerous development in the region in terms of international affairs, especially in South China Sea relations with China? The question is about what do Malaysian political leaders are doing currently to address this crisis that is happening in Malaysian backyard. I think it's a quite sensitive, it's a very important issue, and obviously you're an expert on international relations, so if you can address that as well for us.
Okay, one thing I can see is that, when it comes to foreign policy, the approach that Malaysian government try to bring, which is really actually state-centric, meaning that they never quite, rarely discuss foreign policy or international relations with the populations. So that's why in Malaysia actually they know better about Malaysian politics rather than what happened around the region, for example. So, but this we cannot say that somehow Malaysian government just disregard what really happened in the neighboring areas, particularly when it comes to issue of South China Sea. Yes, I think the most concern for the government right now, I think, based on my observation, is the stability in the government. They want to perform, to show that they can perform, and bring prosperity to the people. And the main issue right now, besides COVID-19, is how to tackle the issue of economy in Malaysia. Yes, I think that's the main agenda. But at the same time as well, I think they know, the effect of the international politics and also regional politics happen around the world, particularly around Southeast Asia or South China Sea. For example, in the particular case that you mentioned, is that South China Sea issue. Then we know that China try to claim, the whole area of South China Sea is belong to them, and there's also overlap with many claimants as well, like Malaysia, Philippines, Brunei, Vietnam, on those areas as well. And there's also skirmishes in those areas between Chinese vessel, with Malaysia, and also the interstate and so on. Just as a country, we have to raise this concern to, for example, like United Nations or to the world, to the international community, saying that China cannot behave like that in dealing with the issue of South China Sea. Even though we realize that we also depending on China on economy, for example, because China is the biggest trade partner for Malaysia now. So, and Malaysia alone also cannot deal with China, because Malaysia is a very small country. We need to have a group of countries, particularly ASEAN, together to deal with China. And ASEAN as well, as we know that, is a unit, but it's a very weak unit. And collaborate together on certain issues. And when it comes to China, I think they also some have a bit reluctant to confront with China. For example, like Cambodia, who depending their economy with China, Myanmar with China, a bit reluctant to confront with China. But other countries probably can confront with China. But the only thing is that United States, have a presence in South China Sea that help to become a buffer, meaning that can become, because United States also try to impose their right for navigation around the South China Sea. They don't want suddenly China ask them to permissions, to pass South China Sea. So somehow US is there, and for me, I think as a Malaysia as a small country need to deal, collaborate with other countries within ASEAN, also US and other countries as well, to pressure China to not really show their might, you know, over the area. You know? So this effort, I think, is an effort of a multilateral effort. It cannot be a unilateral effort by only Malaysia. So that's why I think from the time Malaysia will raise the concern with international community to deal with the issue. So I think whatever issue which going to involve our sovereignty, I think Malaysian government must deal with the issue very seriously. So that's probably my point of view.
Thank you, Professor Azizuddin. Next question is related to the role of culture in Malaysian politics. You mentioned in your presentation that despite all these political developments and different agendas and different phases of Malaysian political development, Malaysia still remained a relatively stable country, which is one of the most important things for economy and society and coexistence of different races and ethnicities. Is that to do with the Malaysian culture that, for instance, there was no conflict like we are witnessing what's happening in different Middle Eastern countries in the Arab world? Is it specifically to do with the Malaysian culture?
Okay, I had this kind of debate before, you know, because my argument saying that why Malaysia is very stable because of our culture. We don't have culture of violence in the society, you know? Because when we got independence, we got independence through negotiations, you know, rather than engage to war with the British, you know. So like Indonesia, for example, or several other countries, you know. So this culture actually evolved until today, which makes violence is not an option in Malaysia. You know? Okay, but some scholar, for example, like Professor Samsul Amri Baharudin, you know, did argue otherwise. For example, you know, he said that not all, you know, he disagreed with my point of view, saying that because in Malaysia there are mechanisms to deal with violence. You know, for example, like we don't have culture, guns culture in Malaysia. You know, so in order to own gun, for example, you need to apply for permit, and it's so difficult to get a permit as well. So gun culture is not there, and we have law that actually prevent people from, you know, to seek for violence. You know, for example, last time we have ISA, but ISA being abolished, but now we have several other law, you know, like terrorism law, POTA, for example, SOSMA, you know, and we have Sedition Act that try to curb any elements of, you know, insightful towards crimes or hatred against other religions, so on. So meaning that we have law that can curb the behavior of people towards violence. You know. Okay, what I can say, another things I think point which I think very important to raise, which I think why other countries suffer from violence, ethnic violence, I would say, you know? Because minority doesn't get enough recognition, you know, in other countries. You know, for example, in the case of Philippines, for example, you know, the Moros, you know, doesn't get recognition as a bangsa Moro, so they're being suppressed. Only lately, when peaceful situation happened in the south, in Mindanao, when bangsa Moro being recognized. You know? So in Malaysia, you can say that the minority, you know, being recognized. You know, Chinese, they have vernacular school, Chinese schools. You know, Indian also being recognized. You know, and they also willing, Chinese, for example, willing to sacrifice their wealth as well for better other Malaysian. For example, when it comes to, even though they're a bit, you know, disappointed with new economic policy, because new economic policy favor more to the engineers, you know, the Bumiputras, you know, so on. But somehow they're willing to share their wealth with the others, you know. So you can see that in the context of Malaysia, there's a harmony in terms of you know, willing to, you know, give and take, you know, within the community themselves. Even though currently there's a group of people who try to question of many things, you know, for example, like vernacular school should be there, you know, or raise the issue of contract social, I mean, social contract, which I think what mentioned in the constitution is really a contract social among the people, you know, so on. So for me, to answer your question, it's not only culture that it's not there. Culture of violence is not there, but other mechanism that established in Malaysia, which make that violence is not the option. So always a peaceful peaceful solution can be can be brought into the table, to deal with all these racial or ethnic issue. So that's why we can see that, example like, in Malaysia, election is still the best option to change power, rather than go for rioting, or for violence. So that's, I think, makes the culture of Malaysia a bit unique because of the mechanisms that established by the countries.
Yes, thank you, Professor. So there is obviously too much at stake to be lost if Malaysians are to abandon this agreement. One question for you is related to, and I'll read it to you. As you suggest, Malay Muslim-centric politics. So there is obviously the perception that the Malaysian politics is a Malay Muslim-centric. And that's common in Malay-led mainstream across both sides of political divide, both coalitions or a third coalition. The lack of ideological and policy differentiation. In short, policies in this country is the policies of personalities and self-interest. In such circumstances, the reforms process stalled. So does that cause the political reform process to stall? Where will this lead Malaysia in terms of gross domestic product growth, income distribution, and human development? So there are a few questions here, but if you can just briefly address this as well.
When it comes to Malay Muslim agenda right now, there's a concern among people, and even many also accuse that the current government, Pakatan National Government, is a Malay, Malay Islam's government rather than a Malaysian's government, because quite a significant numbers of member of parliament who form the government actually from the Malay Muslim. Very small number of them from either East Sabah, East Malaysia, Sabah, Sarawak, or even the non-Muslim. So there's a concern. But I think Pakatan Nasional, even though they definitely will propagate policy agenda that will serve the interest of Malay Muslim, but somehow in order for them to face the election, for example, they realize that they need to become Malaysian centric rather than Malay Muslim centric, because they know that even though now they can form a government, but it won't guarantee them to form a government after these elections. Like I mentioned to you in my presentation, Malay, Mufakat Nasional, Impasse and also UMNO, these two parties alone, cannot form a government. They require another group of parties, that to form government. Those parties must be a multiracial parties, or multiracial coalitions, in order to form a government. So, in order to appeal to the other groups, other ethnic groups, they need to bring a more Malaysian-centric agenda on the table. So, in order to please them and so on. So, okay, for example, the issue of dealing with issue of economy, for example, while they helping, for example, the Malay who also suffer during the COVID-19 pandemic right now, they also need to realize that they need to support also or bring economic opportunity, for example, the other group, the Chinese, the Indian, for example, in the context of Malaysia. So that I think in their mind right now, the only thing is how they're able to produce and to bring trust to the non-Malay who still have a suspicious that they really want to protect them rather than to protect only the majority. So that's, I think, the dilemma of them. But let's see how they appeal to the nations. But when it comes to personality that you mentioned just now, yes, suddenly it becomes more a personality over reform and other things, which I think just to trace Chandra Muzaffar's, point of view regarding neo-feudalistic psychology, saying that Malaysian actually they have tendency to follow certain leaders. Even I also mentioned in my talk. So they see Mahathir as an icon that they follow. Now Muhyiddin is a prime minister, new minister, and they will follow Muhyiddin as long as Muhyiddin can be seen please them and so serve their interests and so on. But this makes political party also become less relevant right now. Icon is more relevant. Similarly, in Impasse as well. You can see Hadi Awang is so prominent in Impasse. So you say that everybody must keep a wall or loyal to him rather than the party. So Anwar Ibrahim, another figure. So you can see that it's determined all by the leader, which I think is not it should not be like that. It should be based on policy. What policy that brought by this political party and also by this leader. So if the policy is suitable to be implemented in Malaysia and also bring prosperity to Malaysia, I think that's the policy should be supported, and also those parties should be supported by the people. So, but in Malaysia is somehow, which I think also very unique, because there's not ideology based, sometimes also not based on policy much, but based on following certain political party and loyalty to the political party and also the leader themselves. So how we overcome this also, that require debates among us to see on this matter.
So you're saying that basically the personalities of particular leaders feature prominently, as opposed to policies. One next question for you, Professor, is the role of monarchy in the current, in the recent conflict between Tun Dr. Mahathir and the current Prime Minister Muhyiddin Yassin, and the subsequent appointment or support by the monarchy to the current Prime Minister. Does that reflect the divisions between Malays or Malaysians in terms of support of the monarchy, and what's your view on that?
Okay, when there's a change of government, when Tun Mahathir resigned, as Prime Minister in late February, so somehow suddenly we don't have government at all, in Malaysia. So it raised an anxiety among all Malaysians, what going to happen in Malaysia for I think more than a week during that period. The only thing is makes Malaysia still function as a government is because of the monarchy and also the Agong, and also the bureaucracy that still give their service, and also run the country, basically. So only the policymaker is not there because there's no government. Because of the situation and how the Agong, Tunku Abdullah, deal with the situation, even try to establish a government by calling all and interview one by one all the MPs, with 222 MPs, Actually, it really raised up the confidence of people for the monarchy, which is previously probably we see monarchy is just like a rubber stamp, only function in the ceremonial session, whatever. But now we can see that there's a true role of monarchy, and actually monarchy can balance the system when suddenly no government, when the government's collapse. So now people I think more embrace the monarchy, see their role is important, and I think and it's actually it helped actually to boost the confidence of people with the system rather than with the government, because government can change. So right now, I think people will think that government can change, but whatever happened, we have experience when we have no government, but government is still there, run as usual, because we have monarchy and also we have bureaucrats that run the government. So when it comes to this, I think we now, Malaysian more appreciative, towards the role played by the monarchy in deciding who be in the government and so on. So I think monarchy is always there, and we balance the system, And of course, the good thing as well, there's no tendency from the monarchy to become absolute monarchy in Malaysia. They still maintain according to the constitutions their role. As long as also they perform their duty according to the constitution, I think it will help as well to strengthen the system in Malaysia. What we want now is only a stable government. We have strong majority, which I think can rule Malaysia, properly. So that's something that probably people wants to look. Now, I don't think people worry so much about monarchy, because monarchy can help to balance the system.
So basically, you're saying that the recent events affirms the role of monarchy in making Malaysia more stable, which is quite interesting. Another question for you, Professor, is do you think that the conditions are arriving or are ripening for some external or a combination of forces that will make policies that are based on race and religion in Malaysia will no longer be affordable? How do you
mean
see that?
External forces? Huh?
Exactly, yeah. The
From
role
abroad,
of, or a combination of forces which will make race and religion less affordable for Malaysian stability.
I don't know. It's subject to what kind of probably intervention from abroad. Because as we know that the dynamics of politics in any country is not only determined by the domestic dynamic, but also by the dynamic abroad, which also can influence any decision from even policy of the countries, which I think makes those policy more prevalent rather than policy of something like issue of ethnicity or race, like you mentioned just now. Okay, I'll give you an example. For example, China, for example, as you know, is very influential right now, and so we now have to deal with China because they is our main investor and trade partner with Malaysia. Of course, somehow we have to, not showing we are hostile towards them. Always want to, to be friend with them and so help them, assist them in investment, whatever. When it comes to G2G, government to government's dealing. But at the same time, also we cannot disregard as well US, which always become our partner, So that's why Malaysia is, if I want to say Malaysia, what kind of position that Malaysia want to put right now, is Malaysia, when it comes to international relations, we want to become a middle power, to become a voice of the people in the international community, but at the same time as well, not to take sides with any factions that exist in the world today. For example, in the case of trade war, the US-China, we don't want to take sides with either of the country. Okay, having said that, there's a concern before, when it comes to KL summit, for example, when you can see that suddenly Tun Mahathir, raise concern about, sanctions happen to, Iran, for example, it seems that Malaysia is going to become, rival, even become hostile towards Saudi Arabia, as we know that there's a geopolitical dynamic happen in the Middle East with regard to Saudis and also Iran factions, and comes Turkey as well, how we also close to Turkey during the Pakatan Harapan period, So I don't know. I'm not sure how this current dynamics going on. Seems that during Pakatan Harapan period, Malaysia is very close to Iran rather than, for example, like to Saudis. But now I'm not sure what kind of situations when it comes to relation Malaysia with Middle Eastern countries. But I can see that we have problem in relation with Saudis before during Pakatan Harapan, but now we try to somehow to bring a close back relation with Saudis. And when it comes to Iran, I don't think how approach we will do, but Malaysia, I think we try to find the middle way to deal all this situation in order not to jeopardize relation between Malaysia with all these countries. including also Turkey, which I think continue to be close friends to Malaysia. So I think these are the dynamics happen when there's a change of government, and so the change of dynamics abroad that cause Malaysia to somehow change certain policy and certain approach in politics when it comes to international relations.
Talking about the KL summit, do you think that the composition, agenda, and prominent participants of the summit accelerated the demise of the Pakatan Harapan coalition government, do you think?
The KL summit, I think, try to come up with a very good, agenda, and also it wants to bring together all the Muslim, Muslim countries, together to find solution to resolve many differences among those countries. Sadly, it's been seen as its agenda to replace OIC, for example, and also there's no participant from several Middle Eastern countries to the summits, so on, and which make it seems like the summit is a failure, unable to really unite Muslim world, and also unable to find solution to Muslim problem when it comes to, for example, like poverty, because one of the agenda is to bring help, investment of more rich country to help the poor countries. So this, I think, and with the change of government now, we're not sure whether KL Summit's agenda will be prolonged by the new government, because of course it's a brainchild of Tun Mahathir, that where KL Summit being established and the agenda put forward all actually coming from him. So, but somehow, whether this actually led, I don't know if I understood your question is now led to whether Pakatan also become weak or whatever, as we know that, Tun Mahathir, when he was a prime minister, he tried to bring back, meaning that the glory of his time, when he was a prime minister, when he's so vocal, talking about so many issues, for example, like issue of Israel-Palestine and so on, and in order to bring back that kinds of, image of Malaysia, championing of issue, particularly among the Muslim countries on, So, and I think the target of Tun Mahathir is APEC summit in November, when he also will bring all of the nations together in Malaysia to discuss on economic issues, to resolve economic issues around the world. So, based on that, the problem is not him in the Pakatan. He, I think, has an agenda, but the problem is with Pakatan, actually, the lack of experience of their members, their leaders, and also in government, makes them don't understand the function of the government, the structure of the government, and how to implement the policies. And so even there's no coordination actually when it comes to policy. Sometimes directive from cabinets not follow much by the ministry. So I think there's a lack of this is because of the lack of experience of them, because they never been experienced in the government, but suddenly become government. But after this, I think probably they know if they're given chance again to form a government. I think they know because they have experience in the government. So that's I think lacking in part of Tun Mahathir. But of course, times to learn from Pakatan's leaders.
Thank you, Professor. This brings us to our next question from our viewer, who is asking, how do you think, who do you think best represent the mandate for the people, Pakatan Harapan or Perikatan Nasional? Do they differ immensely? Do they differ? Is there any major difference between the two coalitions?
Okay, this I think very interesting question, and also I receive a lot asking me about the same questions. When talk about mandate, we need to understand about Malaysian system, electoral system, and so the constitution as well. when we talk, during the elections, actually people, they not voting for the government, they vote for representative in their constituencies. So the mandate that people give actually is to the candidates, in the elections. Of course, the candidate actually representing political party. So those candidates who won the election to become representative of that constituency actually, will form the government through consensus, meaning that through, with the majority votes, among themselves. So, for example, in the parliament, for example, I vote for my constituency, so the representative actually will, this is according to our constitution. The representative, member of parliament, will decide to form a government and decide also to form, to nominate one name who got the majority, simple majority, to be the prime minister. So the role of people actually not to choose the government. The role of people actually to choose who going to present for them in their constituency. This is actually according to Westminster system. So we are unlike presidential system when we choose who's the president, like in US system or Indonesia, So it's more clear in terms of our vote actually towards whom, But in Malaysia, we are choosing representative in the constituency, and they actually form the government. So when it comes to mandate, actually, it's according to those people, member of parliament or state assembly, that to form the government. So if they want to change, have the different arrangement, for example, still actually within the law and also within the provision of the constitution. So that's why it's difficult saying that this is mandate only. Last session we give mandate to Pakatan Harapan to form government. But even Pakatan Harapan government is some of the government, state government actually formed by defection. For example, in Kedah, for example, in Sabah formed because of defection, people from UMNO leaving UMNO to Pakatan. So then you talk about hopping, anti-hopping law, whatever. Is it relevant now? Yes, I think always relevant, but it requires a political will to do to establish anti-hopping law, because you think that hopping is immoral, something like that. Because we vote for that one to form a different government, but suddenly that person or representative form a different government not according to what we vote for. So I think this even Pakatan government last time also decided to silent on this idea of establishing anti-hopping law. But when back to my mandates, actually nothing much different actually. Perikatan or Pakatan is for me is similar according to the law. But for those who really following certain people, for example, certain personalities or certain political party, yes, definitely they are upset because what they want to see is different, the government that they choose suddenly collapse, forming a different government because of the defection. For me, it's normal in any Westminster system, but of course, if you want to change this kind of practices, the country need to have political will to change it.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you, Professor. If we can just move to the next question, our time is really running out. Thank you so much for that elaborate answer. Adriana is asking, she is saying, lady, apart from her education that she received in the 80s and 90s, there is nothing, and she repeats that there is nothing that the so-called warriors of Malays has contributed to her own family well-being. So she's saying that this is all centered on the Malayu mantra, and that the authorities are basically supporting their own circles and their own cronies. And obviously this is a relevant question if you want to answer.
Okay. As we know, in Malaysia, in order to maintain, maintain support, among the people, there one culture, political culture that being practiced today. which we call it a patron-client political culture or patronage system that being applied. So, in order to, for example, bring support from the Malay community to the political party, this system being applied not only through Barisan Nasional previously, even Pakatan also used the same methods in order to attract support from the people. Of course, Malay agenda was being being promoted, particularly by UMNO, and now you can see PAS. In fact, Pakatan also tried to come up with this kind of Malay agenda through Bersatu previously. Even Anwar Ibrahim so saying that somehow we cannot question the right of the Malay, the privileges given by the constitution, everything. So all being this become part of the system that to ensure that the majority being supported. Throughout even from previous generation until today. So of course, there is an issue. There's an issue. That's why when I talk about NEP, for example, new academic policy, one of the criticism with the NEP is because of the leakages. Meaning that scholarship, for example, not given to the needs, the Malay or Bumipitra who really needs scholarship for studies, but being given to somebody who have a close son or daughter of the leaders from certain political party, UMNO, whatever. So this actually, and not to mention about corruption that happen, given projects to certain people who have close link with political parties. So these are some of the criticism which I think makes tarnish the Malay agenda, which I think is good in order to make Malay progress in the community and also get opportunity, as equal as others.
Professor Azizuddin, we only have 2 or 3 minutes left.
Okay.
I am sorry to interrupt you. There was just one question related to Vision 2020 that appears the person who is asking question, saying that by August 2020, this vision will not be realized, it seems. And why don't the leadership focuses on food security of Malaysia rather than just wearing masks?
Okay. I think Vision 2020, we already admit, the previous government, Pakatan also already admitted that, it won't happen this year. In fact, they reprojected, the vision to 2030. But I think by the previous government, the current government have yet to come up with whether they are following the similar approach and a similar approach by the Pakatan Harapan government, and because now we are not sure that the current agenda of because there's no major policy by the government, unlike Pakatan Harapan before. So I'm not sure whether the agenda to make Malaysia a developed country by 2030 is still in progress. So that's why it's difficult to answer to that question. The one is, I'm also don't understand why not only current government, previous government also never concerned about food security, because we used to become exporter of many goods, essential goods, but now become importer of that, particularly rice, for example. So I think we need to strengthen of our agricultural industry in Malaysia, which I think we have huge land, a lot of land now to explore, and the only thing we need to encourage Malaysian, to venture into agriculture more rather than moving toward industrial, to become engineers, whatever. So I think this need to be set up by the policy of the government. Without government policy and really, promoted by the government, I don't think we will think food security is important to us. So
thank you so much. Thank you so much, Professor Azizuddin. We will have to end it there because we ran out of time. Thank you so much for your elaborate analysis of the Malaysian politics amid the COVID-19 crisis and all the additional answers that you provided to the viewers. We really appreciate having you as a guest speaker, indeed keynote speaker of this particular IRF webinar. I think we will probably need more time to address all these questions and answers that you would have to provide. So hopefully there will be opportunities in the future. Thank you also to all our viewers who are tuning in, wherever they might be based. And on behalf of Islamic Renaissance Front, I really thank you so much and appreciate your participation today. Thank you for all those who asked questions. We apologize if we couldn't take all of them, and hopefully there will be other opportunities. The next webinar of the Islamic Renaissance Front will probably happen in 2 weeks' time, and this will be advertised on the website of IRF. So hope to be able to continue this discussion with you, respected Professor Azizuddin, and all the best to you and to the viewers. Assalamu alaikum, and good afternoon to you all on behalf of Islamic Renaissance Front. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you very much.